Like and subscribe right now, or you're going to have bad luck for the rest of the week. We've all heard of mythical creatures, such as dragons, vampires, mermaids, and krakens. Whether we believe they exist or not is a personal matter. However, the Earth has and continues to undergo continual changes regarding land and sea. For instance, several million creatures have gone extinct, but new ones are constantly being discovered. And, according to scientists, there's still vast amounts of the Earth still to be explored, such as the ocean, where more than 80% of it is yet unexplored. So, while these mythical creatures seem too fantastic to be real, it's no surprise that many people across the globe in diverse cultures believe they are. Part of the reason people may believe in the existence of such magical creatures may stem far back in time, when communication and science were much more rudimentary. Cultures tried to explain things they didn't understand to magic and fantastic creatures. But despite some descriptions being exaggerated over the millennia, who's to say such creatures don't exist? Maybe there's a grain of truth to such tales. Let's explore some stories and creatures right now, and where their origins may have come from. Number 10. Moby Dick. The first topic on our list is the myth of Moby Dick, from the novel written by Herman Melville. In the novel, a giant white sperm whale named Moby Dick bit off Captain Ahab's leg at the knee. Ahab was the captain of the whaling ship Pequod. After the incident, he returned to the sea to get vengeance. Though the novel's exact story may be fiction, it was inspired by a true incident in 1820. At that time, Captain George Pollard Jr. was the captain of the ship Essex, which was sunk by a whale. Right at that time, Pollard was away, but when he returned, he found his vessel sinking and his men fleeing. One of his men, Owen Chase, described the catastrophe, claiming an 82-foot albino sperm whale had smashed into the ship. As the ship was taking in water, the men fled, and after, the whale attacked a second time. Pollard survived and returned to Nantucket. He captained the two brothers after, but he ended up crashing the ship 2 years after on a coral reef. There was no record of Pollard ever having his leg bit off by a whale or anything else, so that is most likely a highly dramatized part of the fiction. Number 9. Dire wolves. Dire wolves are popular mythical creatures that have gained increased fame after they were portrayed as gigantic wolves with vicious characteristics that could take down large men quite easily. Recently, they've appeared in franchises such as Dungeons & Dragons and Game of Thrones. However, these wolves weren't merely mythical, they actually existed around 9,500 years ago, when the last ice age ended. What isn't true about them is that they're highly exaggerated in media. However, actual dire wolves were still large animals and highly capable predators. They had large teeth and the strongest bite force among all Canis species. Their prey included horses, bison, and humans during the Ice Age. But no worries, even if they appear in your nightmares, you'll never face them, as they went extinct many thousands of years ago. Number 8. Imugi. You may not recognize this beast from its name, but you've definitely seen it in movies or as symbols. Imugi are Korean dragons and represent all Chinese dragons. But unlike European dragons that have wings, Imugi are long, snake-like reptiles with 4 legs. They represent benevolence and are related to water and agriculture. The closest animal that matches the description of a Imugi is the titanoboa, which were real and the largest snake to ever slither over the earth. It's suggested that titanoboa could grow up to 12.8 meters or 42 feet and weigh nearly 1,134 kilograms or 2,500 pounds. However, they didn't live in East Asia, but in the South American rainforests. They also went extinct nearly 58 million years ago, meaning that the myth of Imugi and the relations to titanoboa are strictly coincidental. Most likely, Koreans derive the mythical creature from large marine reptiles and dinosaur fossils. Number 7. Dragons. Dragons are one of the most famous mythical creatures all over the globe. They've been mentioned in numerous cultures, including ancient Egyptian mythology, ancient Mesopotamia, and in Beowulf. Even though in almost all depictions, dragons are massive serpentine creatures with a pair of wings, 4 legs, the ability to fly, and the ability to breathe fire, there's many variations. Besides many variations in color, temperament, and even the meaning of dragons in cultures, they've also been said to possess abilities, such as breathing frost and surviving in lava. There's really no clear explanation why why or how so many cultures around the world through time came up with such similar ideas of dragons. But the most logical explanation may be that cultures came up with dragons from dinosaur fossils, or from other living creatures like Komodo dragons, iguanas, alligators, and other large reptiles. Number 6. Rocks. According to mostly Middle Eastern mythology, the roc is a monstrous bird of prey. It's gained popularity from being mentioned in several fairy tales and folklore accounts. Also, the roc has been mentioned in accounts and journals of ancient sailors, including from Marco Polo in the 13th century. According to myths, the roc is an enormous eagle with long, thick talons that contain enough strength to pick up an entire elephant. Even though no such bird exists that matches such a description, there's many ways such a myth could have been formed. Such explanations may be from fossils of very large birds, or from sailors' accounts that exaggerated descriptions of large eagles or falcons carrying lambs or small mammals in their talons. Number 5. Griffin. These creatures from classical antiquity were seen as honorable animals that guarded important artifacts and treasures. According to the oldest depictions, the griffin is a hybrid mix of two creatures. It has the body, tail, and hind legs of a lion, while its wings, forelegs, and head were that of an eagle. The earliest known records of griffins date back to 3300 to 3100 BCE in the Egyptian city of Hierakonpolis. However, through time, this ancient myth developed and altered through the medieval period, becoming a Christian symbol of divine power. Like most of the creatures on this list, the griffin is also a product of misidentifying fossils of Protoceratops, which ended up in the creation of the mythical bird lion. This is because the skull of the Protoceratops has a beak-like snout that looks like a bird's head, with a body size that matches that of a lion. Number 4. Blymyes. Blymyes will either be one of the most horrifying or most fascinating creatures you'll hear about in this list. It depends on how you interpret the stories. According to sailors who brought back exciting and often doubtful tales about their travels across Asia and Africa, the Blymyes were wild, headless men. Apparently, they were also extremely hairy, but since they had no head, their facial features were located on their chests. Most Europeans were more fascinated than afraid of such stories, which led to their widespread fame and inclusion in several writings, including in Othello by Shakespeare. But, as with many other mythical creatures, there's two possible sources that may explain the origin of Blymyes. Firstly, it could be an over-exaggerated description of regular gorillas, as people weren't very familiar with those creatures at the time. Only in the 1800s were gorillas first described in scientific journals. Secondly, it could be a misinterpretation of African tribesmen who used to lower their heads when walking, which would give the impression from a distance that they had no heads, but had facial features on their chests. And, possibly, both the descriptions of gorillas and the tribesmen may have been blurred together over time, forming the Blymyes myth. Number 3. Platypus. As platypuses are real animals that exist today, you are probably wondering why they're on this list. Well, despite them being around these days, platypi used to be a very interesting myth back in 18th century Europe. John Hunter sent the first ever description of a platypus and drawing back to Great Britain in 1798, as was the common practice of the day. However, no one believed him and claimed he'd made it all up, stating Hunter deserved to be punished for attempting to deceive the public. Surely, there was no such thing as an animal with a beak and such a physical composition. People thought such a creature was impossible to exist, making the first ever scientific description ridiculed regarding its authenticity. Isn't that something? Number 2. Kraken. We've all heard, read, or seen depictions of krakens throughout European literature, or in media like Pirates of the Caribbean. Krakens are massive, deep-sea creatures with long, mighty tentacles strong enough to pull down entire vessels into the depths of the ocean. Sailors have been describing dangerous wild animals for thousands of years, usually extremely inaccurate or overly exaggerated. But the kraken could be a genuine creature. What sailors might have seen were colossal squids, which can grow up to 10 meters or 33 feet and weigh nearly 680 kilograms or 1,500 pounds. Moreover, these massive squids not only have suction cups, like many other similar creatures, but have large hooked claws, allowing them to claw grasp prey firmly. And the colossal squid was first officially described in 1925 and first caught in 2007. This means that it's quite possible that these creatures are the inspiration behind the terrifying kraken. Number 1. Unicorns. We're all familiar with unicorns and how, when we were little, we wanted to go to magical places and see them. These white horses are usually associated with magic and contain a single, tall, white horn sticking out of the middle of their foreheads. They've been described in many world cultures through history, including in the Bible as Riem, which resembles a unicorn. But, as with many other mythical creatures, the graceful horse-like unicorn myth stems from far less beautiful, real-life animals. For example, among Europeans, the story came from the Roman author Pliny the Elder's description of a rhinoceros in ancient Greece. In the 1st century CE, he wrote of an animal with the head of a stag, the feet of an elephant, and the tail of a boar, with a single black horn on its forehead. The belief in the magical, beautiful unicorn intensified, though, when Norse Vikings started taking narwhal tusks to Europe and, for centuries, sold them as unicorn horns. As Europeans had never seen a narwhal or a unicorn, they believed whatever explanation the Vikings gave them. I mean, I'd rather believe a beautiful horse-like unicorn exists than a massive rhino. That is all for today's video. Thank you all for watching. While you're here, go ahead and click on one of these 2 videos on your screen. See you there!